Internet, and welcome back to another episode of Meet La Prensa. We actually have a repeat guest tonight. We're very excited to welcome back Eric Garcia, freelance writer here in Washington, D.C., who, in our previous episode where we had him on, spoke about his bombshell piece on the cover of Washington Post magazine, where he interviewed his father about his father's support for Trump. So today we're actually going to shift gears a little bit and talk about Democrats, and in particular, a Democrat that I know Ivan in the control room wonders if he's actually a Democrat or some sort of closet Republican. We, of course, are talking about Senator Joe Manchin from West Virginia. Eric, welcome back to Meet La Prensa.
Thank you very much for having me.
Of course. So what accounts for Joe Manchin's tremendous, some might say outsized political power right now?
So I think what you need to do is you need to recognize that there's what's happened with Joe Manchin and in West Virginia and what's happened in the Senate and with the Democratic caucus. So it's important to remember for upwards around 60 years, West Virginia was a solidly Democratic state going back to the Great Depression. Up until 2014, it had a Democratic governor and a Democratic state legislature, both houses. What happened was in fact, I was watching some footage for another piece I'm doing. You could tell that it was from 1996 because there was a Democratic senator from West Virginia and a Democratic governor from West Virginia. What's happened is ever since 2000, it started moving to the right, and it voted for George W. Bush both times.
West Virginia.
And then yes, West Virginia, yes. And then it voted for John McCain and Mitt Romney. And as the Democrats became more focused on the environment and climate change, a lot of, I guess you could say, union coal miners and United Mine Workers felt that the Democratic Party left them behind. So it's moved further and further to the right, to the extent that now Joe Manchin is the only statewide federal Democrat in the race. Its entire congressional delegation is Republican, and it has a Republican governor who used to be a Democrat, then changed parties. The other factor is what's happened to the Democratic Party. What's happened is in 2020, Democrats lost a few seats that they could have otherwise had. They lost Senate races in North Carolina because of Cal Cunningham had an affair. Teresa Greenfield in Iowa lost. And then Susan Collins shocked everybody when she won pretty comfortably. But the other thing that's important that's happened is that Democrats are a lot more homogeneous on social policy and economic policy. It's important to remember when Barack Obama was first president, Democrats had two Democratic senators from Arkansas, two from West Virginia, two from Montana, a senator from Nebraska, and one from Louisiana. Nowadays, the Democratic Party is much more homogeneous. You have senators from Georgia and Arizona, but they're still for the most part, pretty mainline agree with everything on social issues and economic issues. Joe Manchin's still old school. He's from that era when there were I guess we could call ancestral Democrats.
Okay. So looking toward the 2022 midterm, obviously Senator Manchin isn't up for re-election. He might retire, but what are the biggest challenges facing the Democratic Party? Because, I mean, if Biden's presidency is to be just a 2-year mandate, what are the challenges that Democrats have right now to preserve their majorities whilst enacting an agenda that needs to be both transitional from Trump times, and some might argue, given the sweep in the House and the Senate during the 2020 election, also a transformational president.
Right. I mean, Democrats are in a tough spot, no doubt. The midterms of an election are usually bad for the party of the president. So either way, they're going to face a lot of challenges. I think the senator who is probably most in danger for the Democrats is Senator Maggie Hassan. She's a former governor. She runs the risk of the current governor, Chris Sununu, who's the son of John Sununu, who was the former governor as well, and was George H.W. Bush's chief of staff. He's a wildly popular governor in New Hampshire. New Hampshire is one of the few New England states that has, I guess what you could call a libertarian streak. So that one's going to be really difficult. The other one is Senator Catherine Cortez Masto. She might be in some trouble, but she has some other things going for her. Nevada has become more blue over time, but Trump ate away at the margins in both 2016 and 2020, and then there's been a lot of turmoil within the Nevada Democratic Party. The other thing is it's going to be really tough to pick up any seats. Marco Rubio is up for re-election. I really doubt that anybody will be able to beat him. And then on top of that, it's going to be really tough to win in a state like North Carolina and Pennsylvania. It looks like Democrats are going to have a really contentious primary for an open seat because Senator Pat Toomey's retiring, and that doesn't look guaranteed for them.
You actually wrote a story about, I remember your story, Senator Ivanka.
Yeah.
Throw her hat into the ring against Marco Rubio in Florida. Ivanka Trump, that is.
Yeah, so it looks like she's not going to do that anymore. There was talk about it, but I think that she recognized that she doesn't have the kind of built-in support that either her father has or Marco Rubio has. She doesn't have the same appeal with Latino voters. She doesn't have the same appeal with, I guess what you could call working-class whites in the panhandle of Florida. So, no, she's not running for re-election. And then also, I can't think of a Democrat who would want to run against Rubio, because most of the Democrats who have a chance are probably going to run for governor against Ron DeSantis, which I think is also kind of a mistake because I think DeSantis is the guy to beat, and he's going to run for president in 2024.
What do you think makes Ron DeSantis the guy to beat, and why? What walk through your thinking on why you think he'll run for president?
I think DeSantis is right. So first off, DeSantis has the benefit of helping deliver the state for Trump. He is one of Trump's most steadfast supporters. He never put in place mask mandates during the coronavirus pandemic. He opened the state a lot earlier than a lot of other governors. And on top of that, I think Florida, while it isn't great in terms of coronavirus deaths and coronavirus hospitalizations, it also hasn't been terrible. It hasn't been South Dakota. It hasn't been New York. It hasn't been a lot of other red states or a lot of other blue states. It's kind of been in the middle of the pack. And I think that kind of benefits him because then he could say, I didn't close down the state entirely. I didn't put mask mandates in place, and it looks like it's kind of worked. The thing of it is that there are a lot of. I'm sorry, that's an ambulance. My apologies.
We're hearing that on both of our ends. The viewer might know that Eric and I are neighbors.
The beauty of recording a production during coronavirus. But the other thing that DeSantis has going for him is that a few stories have tried to attack him and have kind of landed with a thud. There was a story in Yahoo News that kind of said that he's kind of in the middle of the pack. It kind of basically refuted its own thesis. Then this weekend, there was a story in 60 Minutes that even a lot of Democrats pushed back on about Publix and vaccines. Publix is the name of I guess you could say, a very popular grocery store in Florida. So he hasn't really. There hasn't really been the stories haven't really gone off without a hitch, and then B, it allows him to say the media is against me. The media has a vendetta against me because I'm a conservative, because I stood by Trump. Even though, oddly enough, DeSantis really was kind of neutral or kind of take it or leave it on Trump in 2016. He really didn't start backing Trump until 2018, and then he started running for governor.
So, speaking of media, question we asked you last time, going to ask it again tonight. Who are the most underrated workers in the American newsroom?
I wouldn't call her underrated because I'm sure a lot of people already know her after she pantsed Chris Matthews, but Laura Bassett is phenomenal. I've edited her in the past. Grace Panetta, I should say she's phenomenal. Grace Panetta over at Insider is probably the best reporter on voting rights in the country. I would say she basically does everything about voter ID, vote by mail. She's also been probably the most fair and objective voice on on the Georgia voting bill. She's over at Business Insider. She's phenomenal. She's a friend, so full disclosure, but she's great. I'm trying to think if there are some other ones. Sarah Luterman, a lot of people, I wrote a book, I have a book coming out in August. We're Not Broken. The thing that I say about Sarah Luterman, she's a disabled journalist. She lives in the area. She's written for The Nation, The American Prospect, The New York Times, The Washington Post. A lot of the footnotes in my book come from her reporting and her analysis on the pieces that she wrote and she did. She's just really one of the best writers writing about disability and about the independent living movement right now. I take my cues from her.
Got it. Eric Garcia, thank you so much for coming back on Meet La Prensa. Viewer, if you find value in this video and the videos that we have here like it, please like and subscribe. And you will find Eric Garcia's Twitter handle in the description of this video. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Meet La Prensa. That's a wrap.